tell us just a little bit about the company. I know that it's been around for a while, that you joined it more recently. I always like to ask people to try to start by saying, we help blank your customers, whoever your customers are, and then you just take it from there. So we help blank, and then tell us how you do it.
We help organizations of various sizes around the world hire and develop the best talent. And I think what's amazing about that is we've delivered more than 80 million assessments around the world in dozens of languages. And we have insight into what we call the future of work 4.0. And we can talk a little bit about that today.
Excellent. And the company's been around for?
Criteria has been around for about 20 years. I've been the chief technology officer leading our efforts on innovation the last 4 years.
And what's cool about that, of course, 20 years ago, I doubt that there was a lot of AI being used, but of course today I'm sure there is. And so we'll hear more about how you jumped on the AI bandwagon and how it's changed your company, I'm sure, for the better. The future of work is an amazing subject, obviously, for the impact of AI on work. Okay, same question. Dominic from DFINITY, we help, and then take it from there. Tell us a little bit about it.
I'm going to do quite a few things, so I'm going to try and answer from both ends. Yeah. So high level, we develop a wish machine that will develop IT infrastructure for you, and without you having any technical skills. So you can go to something called Caffeine AI and describe some online functionality you need. It'll say, here you are, give you a URL. You can look at that. You can say, well, actually, we need to change the way this works and add some additional features. It'll say refresh your URL. And this provides a bunch of guarantees. So the applications it creates for you are what's known as tamper-proof, which means they're immune to traditional cybersecurity threats. You can run them without a security team and without traditional cybersecurity measures like firewalls and anti-malware. And you also get guarantees that as the AI is upgrading your app, say, even if it's being used in production, it'll guarantee that data never gets lost during the upgrade process, which of course involves a migration orchestrated by the AI internally. And that's incredibly important, because if you've created a custom CRM, say, that's running your business, of course, over time, you're going to want to change the way things works and add features. It'd be terrible if your production, data was lost from a production system. So that's actually enabled, Caffeine AI is enabled by a new kind of cloud created by a network, a public network, and it's called the Internet Computer. So my other role is, as I'm founder, president, chief scientist of DFINITY Foundation, which is the main developer of the technology powering the Internet Computer Network, which essentially creates an overlay network over the internet and tries to allow the internet to function as a new kind of cloud and compute stack, as well as connecting software and people.
That is quite a description there, in the sense that you're basically solving a lot of problems. And how long have you been doing this?
So, Internet Computer Project, about 10 years. The DFINITY brand came into being in 2015, and the foundation was created October 2016. So it's been around for a while, and the network's worth some billions of dollars now. So it's still a startup, because the cloud industry is worth many trillions. So we're still a minnow, and we want to grow the network to represent a substantial segment of the cloud industry. I guess about 2 years coming up, 18 months ago, we really understood that the nature of clouds are going to change, and in the future, it won't be engineers saying, "Well, I want to use this cloud because I can build with Kubernetes and Postgres and Node.js and so on." In the future, the model's going to change. It'll be the eventual owners of online functionality that'll choose the cloud, and they're going to choose self-writing clouds where they can interact with AI that plays the role of a wish machine. And in a few years' time, we believe that a very substantial portion, if not the majority, of the cloud industry will be self-writing cloud.
Okay. And Caffeine AI, was that right?
Yeah, you can play with this by going to Caffeine AI, which will allow you to interact with an AI over chat. You can upload documents if you want to. It's multilingual, and it will give you what you ask for on a URL, and you can keep iterating and changing how it works and adding features. And it's getting more powerful all the time. This was only released to the public on the 17th of October last year. So
okay, so that part's pretty new.
Yeah, I mean, it's been under development for longer, of course, but it's rapidly advancing. It's incredible how much more powerful it is today than it was when we first presented it, I think in June last year. AI is moving forward at an absolutely tremendous rate, and that's why we think that the majority of cloud will become self-writing within years.
I'm going to ask one more follow-up. I'll come back over here in just a second. So is it reasonable to draw this analogy? One of the firms that has caught the world's attention is Lovable. And you can just talk to Lovable, and you call it a wish machine. With Lovable, it's a wish machine for web pages and apps. So it's almost like having your own internal on-the-fly web designer and web app builder. Yours is much more powerful than that, right? You're building something. It's almost like having a CTO instead of a web designer. You have a CTO, and then also a information security officer, right? It's all built in. Is that a decent analogy?
Well, so we like Lovable. We think Lovable is a great company, and if people are interested in caffeine, they should try Lovable too. And we're really pleased it comes out of Europe, because we need more European tech pioneers. But it's a different approach. So when you build using Lovable, it's creating your app effectively within their SaaS service. So your app isn't portable. It's a bit like Salesforce have something similar now. But when you talk to Salesforce's wish machine, they're going to create some kind of app based on Salesforce infrastructure, and your data and your app is locked inside their SaaS service.
Yep.
The approach we're taking is to create an entirely new stack from the ground up. We've spent $500 million developing that stack that provides an alternative place for apps to be created by AI. And the advantages are that not only the apps are portable. So if you think about Lovable, when you create an app using Lovable, it's inside their SaaS service,
right,
and you then depend upon Lovable to maintain the security of those apps, and you're kind of locked in. If you want an app to be portable, which of course all apps should be portable, that's sovereignty, and sovereignty is becoming increasingly important. You need to be building the app on a platform that guarantees security, because the purpose of self-writing is that you don't need a tech team, and that includes not needing a security team and a systems administration team. So our approach is to provide a platform where these apps can be taken out, for example, out of Caffeine, and without the need for a security team to protect them, because they're tamper-proof. They're built on a tamper-proof cloud. And similarly, we try and use deep computer science techniques to allow people to apply this paradigm in production. So if you've got a big enterprise that's using a CRM, their business relies on it, that it's a completely custom thing, and naturally they're going to want to upgrade that thing by changing the way things work and adding features. It's necessary, in our view, that there should be a hard guarantee that no data can be lost during the migration.
Right.
So the approach is different. And that basically derives from us beginning with the stack over many years and trying to reinvent compute, and then seeing that AI and self-writing cloud is really the natural home for this as the paradigm shifts.
Great. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. So the future work, and specifically, let's talk a little bit about what I said before when it comes to how your company was transformed with the rise of generative AI.
Yeah, look, I think we all have a very relatable story here. We're in the next era of work. And just to describe what I mean by that, if you think of work 1.0 as the industrial revolution, and you think of work 2.0 as kind of the corporate roles in the 1950s, and you think of work 3.0 as the digital era, work 4.0 is about humans coming together with augmentation through AI. And what's amazing to hear is some of the innovation you're working on. I think the skills that are underpinning a lot of that innovation that you're describing are this next generation in this new frontier of technology. And I think our hypothesis is that in practice, we have to change the way we think about how we hire talent, how we develop talent. And we think that it's a growth lever for nations and organizations who lean into this. And historically, it's really easy for us to focus on what we would call static credentials. So maybe how long you've worked in a role, your work experience, maybe your credentials, or maybe what's on your overstated resume, as we're seeing a lot these days, right? With the boom of AI-generated resumes, there's a lot of noise in the market, and that's a problem that we solve pretty directly.
And fake research papers. One of the biggest problems now is that scientific papers are, a large proportion of scientific papers being published are actually fake, and they're even citing each other so that they pass through algorithms and look legitimate. Yeah.
So look, I think, as you described, information security and how we perceive talent signals in this modern market to make sure that we're able to separate what the AI is doing for humans and then look at what is uniquely powerful in kind of a human-centric approach is something that we care a lot about. And when you switch those more dynamic credentials, what I mean by that is your ability to adapt, your critical thinking, your reasoning. And what we're finding is organizations around the world we work with, we have more than 4,000 customers around the globe. What we find is that it really opens up the talent pool. And I think both you and I are focused on growth strategy for our organizations. I know many in Davos are here to think about the next 12 months of innovation and growth strategy. And one thing I would say is that there really is no growth strategy in 2026 without a talent strategy. And people really need to pay attention to this. I think nations, organizations, and corporations, whether they're public or private, will create a meaningful innovation gap if they lean into dynamic signals and the potential of the workforce, as opposed to how we've been hiring for the recent decades.
So I was just recently had an engagement with a relatively large 10,000 person professional services firm. And one of the questions that we were asking just in the last couple of months was, how should we change our hiring practices? And as a result of AI, right? And so this company had rolled out Microsoft Copilot to all 10,000 people just a couple months ago. And so in one sense, what we want is when we're hiring for any position, people that have used an AI assistant before, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, right? You look for someone who's at least used it to some degree, just like we would always look for someone that uses Word or Excel. It's almost like a boring thing to have. It's becoming boring. It should be very soon boring, right? So that would be, frankly, the firm wasn't yet doing it. It was not a standard interview question to look for that. But on the flip side, I think what partly you were saying and are alluding to is, even for any position, even for more technical positions, you want people that have almost more humanities and sort of like liberal arts type background, analytical capabilities, because those are the people that are going to take the output from, in this case, Copilot, but it could be any of them, and sort of critique it, right? So tell us, what are the trends that you see? You're an expert in this area. I don't know what the trends are in hiring as far as people looking at both sides of that coin.
Look, I think you bring up a great point. I would think many of us refer to that as soft skills. Yeah, I don't love that term in this age. I think many people are starting to not love that term soft skills as well. I would reframe them, and we would reframe them as durable skills. Yeah. Right. So what you've described is their ability to critically think, adapt, reason. It creates an economic and workforce resiliency that is really required when AI comes together with our elements of human potential. And it's very, very important to understand that in this modern hiring approach, you have a lot of structured and unstructured data. Your whole interviewing experience can be completely rethought such that you can collect cognitive signals through psychometric assessments that are based on science that's been around for decades and decades, but delivered in a really innovative way to candidates so that they have the best experience with our customers, who are the employers. You can leverage tools like structured interviewing delivered through asynchronous video, where candidates can speak to a prompted question or video that's on brand for that employer. We can then conduct the automated scoring and analysis of that. And what's really unique about Criteria is last year we were the first organization to bring a fine-tuned small language model to production that can score an interview as effectively as an expert human rater. And we're really proud of that fact. And that's really hard to do. Transparency is very important. There's risk of biases that you have to mitigate when you're using AI to do something as important as informing human decision makers around talent. Right. We've seen mishaps of AI being applied in areas where maybe credit scoring has gone wrong, and we just really have to take the seriousness, a serious approach to how we work with AI to predict talent, and criteria is leading the way there.
That's great. I mean, there's no doubt every company would agree. I bet you would agree that there's nothing more important than the quality of the people that you hire, really. I mean, even though we're all technologists, that's make or break for any company. And yeah, there's the case of credit scoring gone wrong, and there's the case of Amazon bias in gender, unintentional, but nonetheless real bias in gender. And so you're in an area where there could be some minefields, So,
sure.
But as you said, if you're the first company to get it right and navigate those minefields, it's huge value. It's huge value. So best of luck. It sounds like you're onto something there. I always like to let panelists, even though there's just 3 of us and 2 panelists, so to speak, ask each other some questions. So you're doing, some very cool stuff, both of you with technology, and you're the chief technology officer. You're the chief scientist and founder. So you're not, MBA type, so to speak. You're both technical people. Why don't you start by asking a little bit about his wish machine, and then I'll let you ask him a question as well. All right.
I'd love to. Look,
grab it if you'd like.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
I think one thing that rattles around my mind is I have a theory that engineers are moving closer to the center between product team members and engineering team members, and likewise product team members are moving towards the center, more towards engineers, and maybe we're seeing this culmination of product engineer. With all the innovation you're doing, I'd be really curious how you're seeing talent develop in your organization, and if you agree with that.
I agree 100%. I mentioned at another event earlier today that so the majority of our employees have PhDs, which reflects the technical nature of what we do. But increasingly, we're seeing people without sometimes even any formal education at all rising up because AI is supporting them play more technical roles. And this allows the value of the soft skills that I heard earlier today described as
a better word.
Yeah, metacognition abilities. Metacognition abilities that, for example, allow people to be better at productizing technology. Those people are now advancing because the AI is supporting them within a very technical organization. So we're seeing changes in the workforce at DFINITY Foundation and Caffeine, which are enabled by AI, which is interesting because, of course, the technology itself is also enabling change. So we supported the Mission Hill hiring for good branch of the city of San Francisco recently. And what they do is they take people from disadvantaged backgrounds and give them training in, the program we were part of, training in construction administration. And then they place them in good jobs in the construction industry. So their last batch were also trained to use caffeine. And now people who've often had, left education at the high school level, have no formal training, and now being placed in jobs in construction as administrators with a superpower, that is, they can also create internal tooling and IT infrastructure for these construction companies. So they're suddenly finding that they can advance in terms of the roles they're able to play, thanks to AI. So I think you're exactly correct. AI is opening opportunities for people who have better metacognition skills, or maybe completely lack the kind of technical frameworks that would enable them to play the role of a designer of a technical system, let alone somebody who could implement it. And so, AI is disruptive on the one hand. I've been writing software for 45 years now, and I've got various special technical skills, and I recognize that AI is in a way putting me out of a job. But at the same time, it's also democratizing access to tech. If you're a solopreneur and you're not in Silicon Valley and you can't raise money, all of a sudden you're able to build the system that you've envisaged. That's incredibly liberating for a lot of people. And within the workforce, we're seeing people becoming mobile in ways they weren't because they're able to draw on AI to do things they couldn't do before. And now the strength of some of their soft skills matters much more. So that's, I think, a good thing. And it's important to note that AI is driving these changes that are disruptive. But actually, there's a very positive dimension to these changes, which is that people who don't have the backgrounds that gave them these sort of kind of rare skills are suddenly able to do things within work roles they couldn't before.
That's an amazing story. I picture this program in San Francisco, and I used to live there, for, let's say it's been around for a while, for decades now, taking people, like you said, high school graduates only, and training them so they can be employed in the construction industry and doing a very good job of it and making the world a better place. And for years, the employers have been happy to get these people and they're motivated. And now, same thing happens if I'm an employer for the third year in a row. I get them and I give them their admin assignments and they're doing exactly what I expected. And then all of a sudden they turn to me one day and say, yeah, I've been doing this for 2 weeks and I wrote an app to do it automatically. And the look on the hirer's face, you did what? Right? And that would have literally been impossible until recently, that somebody with a high school non-technical education could just casually drop in, oh yeah, I wrote an app to do this, right? It's really a major change throughout the world. Yeah, that as well.
I think one common theme I'm hearing here, which I think is really important, is this is talent mobility at its finest. And I think when organizations and nations and governments, private or public, think about economic and workforce resilience, talent mobility is something, I don't know exactly to what magnitude that will apply yet, but I know it's going to be very, very strategically important. So what you've described is, how do we best measure these talent signals from candidates, but also our employee base, and establish this candidate blueprint, I like to say, right? Which is almost like the DNA of your employee or candidate. And then if I can map that against job families, like we have 2,000 plus jobs that we've mapped to with really strong data standards, I can then unlock insights around a candidate or an employee applying for one role and maybe being mobile to another role. And in my opinion, that's really workforce resilience.
Go ahead. Actually, you've answered the question I was going to ask, which is, as you know, as the importance of soft skills grows, how do you evaluate soft skills? How do your systems evaluate soft skills? Are you just drawing on research, and I guess you're using AI to look for them and patterns?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think I'll answer that in two parts. I think the first part is, there are, on our cognitive side, psychometric frameworks that really anchor us in decades and decades and decades of research. It's not reinventive. In fact, cognitive is a very predictive way to understand a candidate's, aptitude for a role. It's like what they can do, right? If that's how you frame it. The soft skills, durable skills, those are, for example, more on the personality side. And if cognitive and aptitude is, can they do the job? The durable skills and soft skills that we measure through personality and other means of maybe less structured assessment are, will they do the job? So we need to understand, can they do the job? What is their potential? What is their aptitude? And then we need to understand, will they do the job?
Excellent. Okay, we're running short on time here. I'm going to wrap it up with one final question for each of you. People come to Davos to learn. AI is all up and down the promenade, the main street here. Virtually every sign has AI on it. But again, I always like to try to pull nuggets out from insiders. What do you think is something that you think is really important about AI in 2026, right? So just looking forward in the future, just a little bit. I'm not going to ask you about 2030. I always find that amusing because nobody can tell what AI is going to do in 2030. But something that you think more people should know is going to happen with AI in 2026 that people don't know in general.
I think what I've learned working closely with AI as a technology is that it's going to continue advancing pretty rapidly. And it's difficult for people from non-technology backgrounds to grasp. So originally, I came from England. They moved to Silicon Valley and now live in Zurich. But if you went back a few hundred years, you might find my great-great-great-grandfather was a blacksmith in some English village that looked like Hobbitsville. And his father was a blacksmith, and his father was a blacksmith. And nothing really changed through the decades. Maybe a carpenter found a better way of making a wagon wheel, and this knowledge spread, and now the wagon wheels are slightly more reliable, and you went from a broadsword over 500 years to a rapier. And so there was change. But actually, in evolutionary terms, even that change was fast. If you go back a few thousand years, change was even more glacial. And that's what we evolved. So it's very easy to have this cognitive bias where we see a status quo and we imagine it's static. That's no longer the case in modern times, and it's increasingly becoming less the case. So give you some perspective on AI in my field. Craft coding, where engineers write code, probably dates back to the 50s. I think in the 60s, I've even done this myself back in my university days, created programs on punch cards and fed them into a giant, enormous computer that had hardly any computing power. Then you had, assembly code, high-level languages like C, object orientation like C++, languages that ran in virtual machines like Java and so on. But this craft coding continued really undisrupted in a way, other than just improvements in the language tools we used to build software for many decades. And then end of 22, GPT started getting interesting, and people found they could learn some interesting things talking to the chatbot. It hallucinated all the time. You had to be very careful what you believed, but nonetheless, you could derive real value from it, and this was an incredibly exciting experience. A few months later, vibe coding took off, and it was very basic. The AI could bootstrap the framework of a program for you and save you time. Scroll forward to today, just over 2 years on, with respect to vibe coding, it's immensely more powerful. You've got agentic models that can work on incredibly complicated code bases end to end, and even very experienced engineers are finding they write less and less code. I mean, software engineering is essentially dead man walking. And in the last year, of course, we saw the advent of self-writing. So when Caffeine launched, or was first demonstrated in June, and then launched to the public October, the self-writing cloud was able to create systems end to end with complex backends, and you didn't need a security team and things like that. So the time from vibe coding to self-writing is very compressed. AI is going to continue developing very fast. It'll develop steadily with improvements in hardware, and then it'll make little leaps, either because we found better ways of applying it in agentic frameworks, or there are new tweaks to the models, or even new kinds of models. It's far from certain transformers are the last word in AI models. So we have to prepare everybody for a world where AI is rapidly advancing in capabilities, and then chart a course with respect to that knowledge, and think about, for example, how do we advise the young to spend their time? What skills should they learn in this new world?
Okay, so the pace is going to continue, and it's hard for us to even keep thinking about it the right way because it's so much faster than before. Last thought, sorry, we're really out of time. Just give me a quick, what do people need to know they haven't thought of?
In order to keep that pace we're describing, we need to balance the speed and what we are creating with building trust and making sure that we're doing it in a responsible way. And I think if 2024 was about AI and chatbots, and 2025 was a dive into agentic AI, 2026 will be continuing those important work streams, but doing it in a way that we build and increase trust and make sure that we understand that adoption will only come when folks can trust what we're building.
Great. Thanks again, everybody, and goodbye from Davos and Imagination in Action.